This is oral history number 378. The following oral history interviews are being conducted by Captain Marshall Hansen and Commander Jim Antonellis for the National Park Service at the Alamo Hotel on December 5th, 2001 at 8:47 a.m. The person being interviewed is Seaman First Class Duffin, who was on the USS California on December 7th, 1941. Sir, for the record, please state your full name, place of birth, and birth date, please.
Woodrow Duffin, was born December 5th, 1921, West Fork, Indiana.
Okay, what do you consider your hometown in 1941?
Richmond.
What were your parents' names?
William C. and Letty M. Duffin,
Now, you said your hometown was Richmond. What state?
Indiana.
Indiana. Okay. How many brothers or sisters did you have and do you have now?
Well, I had 5 brothers and 3 sisters. Now I have 1 brother and 2 sisters.
Okay. Where did you go to high school?
I didn't.
Okay. So, where and when did you enlist?
December 39.
Okay. So were you in high school at the time and decided that the
No.
Navy was an option, or?
I didn't have no funds to go to high school.
Okay. So what grade did you complete?
8.
8th grade? And then you decided that the Navy was going to give you the education.
Well, I kind of liked what they was doing. I talked to some of the guys that had been there, and it seemed like a pretty good job.
Okay. I can't disagree with that. Can you tell us about your experiences on December 7th? Were you aboard the California at the time of the attack?
Well, I was been assigned to Captain Train, who was Chief of Staff, Admiral Pye, gig as a signalman. And always on the mornings, we would always go over to Fort Island where we could get fresh water to wash the thing down and chamois it off, making it look sharp, you know, and stuff. And we just finished that operation and was on our way back to the California, which is only like 200 yards or 300. And we heard these planes coming. And I was a bow hook along with Red Spadone. And he said, "Fly boys out early this morning. You hear the drone of the aircraft." And of course, we were thinking, well, Navy don't fly much on Saturday or Sunday morning. Maybe it's the Army. But anyhow, when you look at them, they was coming down, and they had a bomb range at the end of Fort Island where they had the big sandbar where they dropped dummy bombs. And that first one hit, and all hell broke loose, and the debris and stuff went out. My God, that's not practice bomb. That's the real McCoy. Then when we look back, we could see the meatballs on them valves coming down. I thought, oh, Christ almighty, this is war. So we got to get to the ship and get to our battle stations. So from there, we tied up to the boat boom, hit the boom down, and as I'm running forward, I know I got to go down to anti-aircraft ammunition handling, 3rd deck forward. And I look across the ship as I'm going forward to the forecastle deck to go in under. There was I seen a Cape bomber coming down, still had a torpedo hanging under, and it was close. Now, the pilot had his canopy closed, but the gunner sitting in the back had the windshields on his goggles, and he was looking, and he had his little gun sticking out. But my God, that mean-looking thing, it's pretty plain, painted green with the big red hood. Of course, as I went forward, before I got to the forecastle deck to go under, to go down, I turned to look back to see what happened to that plane, and he'd made a left. And when he did, I think it was from the tubs of the Maryland and Tennessee, or 2 of the Cage-Mass battleships that had 50 caliber machine guns up there, was shooting at him, and that little guy in the back was shooting at them. And he went across Fort Island. Now, of course, that's the last thing I seen, and then as I was running forward, I heard one of the 5-inch go off right above, which they set on the deck right above it. And of course, that's all I seen. From then on, I'm down on the third deck, and I remember taking the big torpedo hit first, jarred us pretty good. Wasn't long, we got another one. Then after that, I don't remember. I think where we were at, we were right under the armored deck of where the 2,000-pound bomb came down, and probably concussion knocked me out. Because I didn't come out of it till around 11 o'clock. And the oil was coming in pretty bad then. And I know I can't get out forward, I have to go aft. And of course, as I'm going back, there were several guys down. And I had oil all over me, crude. And I got in some guy's locker and got a towel and wiped part of it off. And then when I got aft to where I'm going to come up, and I forget the location on that, we're under an armored deck there, but there's a hatch you can go up back aft, and it was dogged down except one dog was loose, and I'm trying them and I can't move them. But I got the loose one, and I got to making an SOS with the code thing, and pretty soon I heard guys talking. I don't know who they were, and they said there's somebody down there, let's get this open. He said, well, we don't have no power, you have to manually open it. And of course I was covered with crude, had my arm stuck through one of the rungs of the ladder, and then of course when they got me out on deck, I remember, don't know what time it was, but I know the sun was directly overhead, but I'd been down in the dark for a long time, man, it was a bright sun. Then they took me to hospital, and I spent about 3 or 4 days over there getting fixed up a little bit. And before I left there, when I was ready to get out, there was a Japanese plane shot down right out by Hospital Point, and I thought to myself, well, I've been wanting to fly and took some lessons, but I'm going to go out and take a look at that plane. Of course, it had fired up pretty good. Kind of stenchy. She was sitting cocked up like that a little bit. And in that cockpit, there was a little compartment to the right side that had a sack of rice in it. Oh, about that big around, about that long. And that fire on that had cooked that enough it had opened the sack and part of it was rolling out. Now, for a long time, I couldn't eat rice after that. But I made up my mind I didn't want to fly after seeing what happened to that guy. From there we went back I got a boat and went back over to Fort Island near the California. Of course, she'd been abandoned. And found my crew, and they'd got a 50 caliber Browning off one of the PBYs. And they'd got sandbags, and they made a pit-like thing is 4 or 5 foot deep and had that thing mounted in the middle. Had plenty of ammo. That's where they was staying. So that was tail end of that one.
Now, basically your crew had created this station then, and they were basically ready for any additional wave or forces that were coming in. So
it was on the golf course, and I don't know which sand pit this was. They'd borrowed the sand out of it to make their. No, they were waiting for anything to happen.
Now were they bivouacked out there and actually camping out?
Oh yeah.
So
well, you had no other way to go.
Because the ship was basically abandoned.
California was sitting on the bottom by then in pretty bad shape. You know, she almost capsized.
Mm-hmm. Now, revisiting your general quarter station, you said you supported an anti-aircraft gun and you were down...
Anti-aircraft ammunition handling forward, starboard side.
So how many decks were you down below the main deck?
3 down.
And what type of job were you doing down in that?
Handling the 5-inch ammo. It was through the conveyors to go up to the guns.
So you're taking it from the box and putting it onto the conveyor?
Yeah, out of the magazine,
Okay.
yeah.
So during the two waves of attacks that occurred, I imagine that kept you quite busy with sending the
Yeah,
ammunition up there.
I'd say the adrenaline was flowing pretty high. You knowed what you was into. I mean, it's all new, but you know you're into it.
Were you getting reports from above on what was being seen, or
I wasn't involved on any reporting. It came up or down by telephone as somebody else's job. Well, I was doing what I was told to do.
Now you said when the bomb hit the deck, the concussion probably caused a concussion.
Well, that's the best I could piece together after it was over with. And then, you know, you're inquisitive as to what occurred. You didn't get to see much, but you down below. But now, of course, being a signalman, we talked to the signal tower across Ford Island all the time, pretty well acquainted with them. And the report from him was that bomber was coming right directly at his nose. And he said there was gunfire off the California that hit it directly and they exploded it. I don't know whether that was the gun that went off that I heard or not. I didn't see that. But we were trying to put pieces together. And Kate that was coming down with a torpedo and still hanging on it, hadn't used it. The only thing we could surmise is she probably was assigned to Pennsylvania, which had went in the dry dock the day before, so he had no target. So when his target's not there, of course he'd turn to go try to figure out another one, I suppose. I don't know what is in his mind, but it always was amazing, why was this particular torpedo bomber hitting nobody? And it had to about be the Pennsylvania that had moved into dry dock the day before. Of course, Admiral Kimmel's flagship was the Pennsylvania. She usually tied up at Dockover. He didn't like riding boats. If he could, he'd find him mooring on the beach.
Now, you said the concussion knocked you unconscious.
As far as best we could figure about time framing was about the same time when that happened.
When you woke up, you basically found yourself, because the power was out, in the dark.
Oh, yeah. Well, you had your battle lights on, your little red, real dim lights, you know, just enough to see things.
And you said there was oil in the space.
There was crude, yes. See, she got hit with 2 torpedoes, and of course that ruptured the tanks, and it was coming in. She was listing pretty bad by then, and it was up on us.
Now, was your space then flooded to somewhat with oil, or?
Yeah, parts of it was, and then as you went aft, it hadn't got through that passageway yet. It was living quarters, and there was lockers along the side of it.
Now, the direction you went, was that your normal escape route?
Well, I'd been aboard the ship 2 years and pretty well acquainted with it, and I knew where the various hatches and passages were, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I know I couldn't go out forward because it's full of oil. See, that went out amidships when you went forward. And I looked through there, and that oil was all the way up to the overhead. So then I know I got to get out of there. Note if I went aft, there was another hatch back there that went through that armored deck. I think it was about 11 inches armored. I don't remember. I know it was heavy.
Now, in your departure aft to the back hatch, did those battle lights sustain a pathway so you could see your way, or did you lose the power and have to go through darkness at some point?
Well, no, you see, you had your battle lights were on. That would be the battery-powered red glow lights. Mm-hmm. And once your eyes is accustomed to that, you can see pretty good. Probably wouldn't want to read a paper, but you could see enough to know where you was going. That's the way best I remember. That had been 60 years ago.
Well,
you're checking on an old man's memory now, too. You keep that in mind.
You got out. You were sent to the hospital. Did they find any other injuries besides the concussion?
Well, they showed up the second or third day when I finally got the oil off of me. Incidentally, those people running that hospital were magnificent people. And we were a lot of fellows in there. And they was taking them out 2 and 3 every hour that didn't make it. Now, I was laying next to a Marine off of West Virginia that had a misfire on a 551. And he went and opened the breech, and when he did, of course, the thing ignited. And it got his hands all the way up here to the side of his face pretty bad. He hard Marine. And a little nurse was taking that, black as that, yeah. And he pulling up little pieces of that and trimming that off, and you could see the leaders and the blood vessels in his hand.
Well, burns are tough.
All the same time, he's trying to get together with a little nurse. I'm trying to figure out, they must pump a lot of morphine in him or something. For that.
It's also a Marine.
Really good for a lot of things.
Now, going back to, you had just washed the gig down. And you're going back to the California when you saw the first planes come in on that first wave. And you indicated that there was a bomb explosion. Now, you're basically coming around from the freshwater source, so you were just outside of Battleship Row, or was the water down by the seaplane?
Well, no. See, we was tied up Fox Stray, and starboard astern was about 200-300 yards. It was a fresh water over at a little boat dock thing that they had on Ford Island where we went. Now, the aircraft hangars and stuff was forward and to her right.
Correct. So you were down by the oiler. The fresh water was down along the piers, and the oiler was down in that direction, because this was astern of the California.
Well, that's to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Oil?
No, okay. Well,
Misunderstood you.
you had the California, and what was the name of the oiler? Okay, just the ship that was behind the California.
Well, there was California Fox 3, and then Fox 4 was normally a aircraft tender. And I don't remember whether it was Curtis or Anteri. I don't remember the name of that ship.
Okay.
Then after that was Fox 5, 6, 7, and 8. And the first 2 battleships, well, one would bore to quay, the other tap alongside, and then there was 3 of those doubled up. And then after that was the Arizona with a repair ship aboard, and then back of it would be the Nevada. I kind of remember, but I get mixed up on which ones were where, because we normally tied up about the same way every time when we came in.
But you were coming from Ford Island, the freshwater, and you're coming up the stern of the California.
Well, we're coming up to the starboard side of it, starboard quarter.
Starboard quarter.
Well, we don't go astern of it.
Okay, you're coming inboard towards the island, because the bow was pointed out towards the harbor entrance.
Yes. Always turn them around and headed them to sea before we tied them up.
And you saw that first plane come in.
We saw the first one, a group of them coming down, one usually normally about behind the other one.
What direction were they coming from?
That would be Ford Island being northeast and southwest. They were coming down at that angle.
So they were kind of going parallel with Ford Island.
But, to more or less to the east side of it, or southeast.
Okay. And you remember that first bomb blast because you thought they were going up?
Well, we know was not practicing. When that thing went off, I mean, parts of buildings and planes and went skyward. I mean, of course, the next guy in, of course, he's popping the same area. What they had tied up there mainly was the Catalinas in that area.
Okay, so the first bombs you saw were down in the Catalina area.
Yes.
Great. Do you have any questions, Jim? Do you have anything else you want to say? Anything?
Not ever let that happen again.
Well, I think it was a good lesson that we need to relearn.
And we lost it, didn't we?
Now, what are your feelings in comparing the events of December 7th and now having seen the events of September 11th?
Well, vigilance, you know, we're talking about freedom here. It doesn't come cheap. It's expensive. It costs lives, lots of money. And you got people that don't like us. The only thing I hate about it, we don't understand them people well enough. They hate our guts. And we're not sharp enough to figure that out. We're talking about intelligence now. You've got to be able to get inside their heads a little bit to see if you can avert that type of operation. That's rough.
It is rough.
See, the thing that always aggravated me the most was the people that said it can't happen here. To hell it can't. It can happen anywhere, anytime. If you're not vigilant, you got to be careful with them people, all of them. Trust none of them.
You've had to experience it twice.
Well, I became a member early on of the Pearl Harbor Survivors Association. I didn't like the name, but stayed with them a couple of years, and then I lost my buddy that was always wanting to go, and I kind of give up on it. But there's one of the things that we decided we should do early on. That's talk to our congressmen and to our senators to make for sure that the military has enough funding that we don't get caught in War II with War I equipment. And that's what we did. We're sitting down there with a few 50 caliber machine guns for anti-aircraft protection. We did have some 551s, which was dual purpose, and then we had some 525, which would reach up maybe 17,000 feet. I see all that stuff should have been changed into 40 millimeters, 538s, 40 millimeters, 20 millimeters, and so forth. We didn't have that. We didn't have enough funds to do that, I guess.
No, it's all right.
Had we been strong enough, them suckers never attacked us. The reason they attacked us because they knew we were weaker than they were. That's the way their feelings were. That's the reason they laid it on us. Now, if we'd had the fleet out here that we had by mid-43 or 4, them suckers never would have attacked us. We'd have been too powerful for them. That's truth. That's my thinking. You ask me, I'm telling you.
Well, thank you. Well, if there's nothing else, I'd first of all like to thank you for your service to the country, and also like to thank you for sharing your story. And as I said, this will be archived with both the Park Service, and a copy of the transcript will be included in the Naval Historical Center.
That's okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. We had a lot of fun after that, though.